How are you all doing? Alright, I'm so happy to see all of you. Today I want to continue our lesson on database management, and we are going to learn about Microsoft Access. So for those of you who have never created a database, today you are going to create your very first database. Okay, so I want everyone to open to Access right now. We are creating our very first database. Some of you do not have any experience with databases, but you have to. You have to. If you think IT is important, then what the experts will tell you is that databases are so important. So make sure you learn about database, and Access is the easiest database program to learn. Alright, so this is Microsoft Access right here, and this is our welcome page. Can you all see this? This is our welcome page. Now, what do you see over here? What do you see here? Blank database. So when you are starting to create a database, you need to start by creating a blank database. So you create a blank database first, and next time, if you have a database already, then you open an existing database. So let's look at some of the basics in database management. This is our welcome screen, and on the welcome screen we see home, we see new, we see open. Already we have access to new over here, and we are seeing blank database. So we can start from there, or we can click on new. When you click on new, you'll see a similar page, and you see your blank database again. So we can click on that and start. Please, are you ready? If you are ready, just click on blank database and wait. Click once and wait. Just click once and wait. Okay, so when you click that, a window will pop up, and this window is telling us blank database. Blank database. Please, I believe you know what databases are. I believe you know what databases are. Okay. Who has experienced any form of database before? Before we create a database right now, I want to ask you, who has experienced any form of database before? Let me give you a little practical on that. Let me click here and open to a certain site, and I'm going to show you a real experience of database. I'm going to log into our school database, right? And let me enter my username and my password, and I'm going to get into one of our systems to the back end, and let me try and give you a little demonstration of what I'm talking about. So this is a system we designed, and over here I want to show you something here. Let me zoom in a little bit, and over here, what do you see here? And what do you see here? Students database. So you are all students, right? Let me click here, and I'm in one particular section of the students database. Now in this database, why do we have this database? Because we may need information about our students later, or at any time. We may need information about our students at any time. All right. So this portion of the students database is a portion that stores all the details of all the students. So let me give an example. If I want to search for someone here, someone should give me their surname. Okay, there's someone called Suarez here, right? Watch this. So under name, so let's say I'm looking for the phone number of Suarez to call him, and right now he's not around. The school needs to contact him. Do you know how the school will get his number? In this database. So we'll come here and type Suarez. Press enter. When you press enter, do you see his name? Yep. Is that his name? Do you see his student ID? Do you see his student ID? Is that his telephone number? Suarez, is that your telephone number? Yes, sir. Did you hear that? And occupation, he registered as a student, and his status here says student. So if I want to call him, I have his number here. When I click on his name, this one is a link. I will know every information about him. The day he joined the school, I'll know his class performance, I'll know his payment records, I'll know everything about him. Please, do you get the idea? Is it important for the school to store all this data about every student? It is extremely important. So how do we store the data? We use databases. Do you understand me? The database I used to design this system is called MySQL. MySQL. Did we talk about MySQL? That is exactly what I used to create this system. Now, I don't want to, you say the database is telling me that he lives at Mirage. Do you see it? Let me zoom in. Let me zoom in. Put this on his name. Do you see something? Suarez, is that where you live? Yes, sir. Did you hear that? Okay, let me find someone else here. Okay, so someone should give me another name. Hosanna. Hosanna. Is that how you spell your name? So I'm going to perform a search. Please, are you following? Yes. I'm performing a search. So I'll hit enter, and you will see in a few minutes or seconds. In a few seconds. No, seconds. Okay. Do you see Yawa Duho Hosanna? Is that your name? Do you live at Mirage? Yes, sir. Did you hear that? Is that your student ID number? Yes, sir. Is that your telephone, my dear? Yes. So if I want to call you now and I dial this telephone, will I reach you? Yes, sir. Let me tell you, all the thousands of students who have come through this school, if we need any information about anyone, we have it. Do you understand? Your attendance, your everything, we have it. How do we have it? We store in our database. So if we need it, we will go to our database and access every information. Let me tell you, every university in this world has every information about all their students. Why do they keep that data? It's in their database. It's not in an Excel file somewhere. No, it's in a real database. Excel is not a real database. It's in a real database. If you go to a hospital, they will tell you to give them your patient ID. So they will go to their search in their database and they will search by ID, student ID. Let me search by someone's ID, AHIS 19, pardon? 57. Enter. Do you see who this ID belongs to? Do you see this ID? And he lives at this Ghana code. Do you see the code? This is the GPS code. This is ID. This is telephone. Please, is that your telephone number? Is that your telephone number? Joel. Oh, can't you see? Joel, is that your name? Look at your address. Is that where you live? Do you see the code, the GPS code? That's where you live. This is your ID number. Is that true? This is your telephone, is that true? How? There's a mistake where? So it is 487. That means when you are registering, you made a mistake during your registration. You did. Okay, so forget about that. Listen, every company needs a database to store information about all their customers and all their sales and everything. If you don't have data behind your business, you will lose a lot of records and you can't analyze your history and get information from your past. Data is vital, and database systems are extremely necessary to help us keep all these systems. So database management is about storing data on computers, using computer programs to store data so that we can access, like I'm accessing now. We can update, we can delete, and we can do a whole lot. So we have information about so many things. If someone wants to register online, take an online class, whatever, we have access to everything. I just don't want to show you too much. So this is a real demonstration of how a database system will work. Okay, so to create a database, when you go to new, you see this pop-up window asking you for some information. Now, over here, what do we see? Blank database. Now, watch this. Before you create a database with Access, please are you with me? Take this from me. All databases operate in the same way or a similar way. The systems you are using may have different user interfaces and may have some different options, but all databases in general operate in a similar way. So when you study Microsoft Access, you are not just learning Access, you are learning database management. When you move to MySQL or SQL Server, you realize that you are using the same things. Every database runs on tables, queries, primary keys, foreign keys, schemas, and reports and forms. They are all the same. So when you are learning one of them, you are actually getting training in databases in general. So this Access is the easiest one of them to learn. When you learn it, you have trained yourself in database management. All right, fine. Let me continue. I see file name. Do you see file name? And the new database I want to create with Access, this is what I see here. It is telling me database1.accdb. Do you see this .accdb? It is the file extension of Microsoft Access databases. You heard of the extension of Microsoft Word files, right? Or documents. What is the extension? Did you watch in the video how I pronounced it? Yes. What did I say? It's called docx. 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 So it is .docx. That's what I said in the video. That means he has watched the video. The rest of you have not watched it. All right. In Access, if you want to create an Access database, the file extension of Access database files is .accdb. So when you see a file having an extension .accdb, what type of file is it? It is a database. A file with extension .accdb is a database. It's an access database. ACCDB even gives you a clue that it is access database. If you see a file and the extension is in .sql, it is a database. SQL is a universal term in all of databases, in all fields. Okay, so over here under file name, what you have to do is to highlight what we have before the .accdb and give it a name. Give it what? So you are going to give it a name, and the name you assign is going to be your database name. So this is how I will name my database. I'll call it, okay, so I have given my database a name, SchoolDB. Please, did you see that? So every database needs a name. You can give it any name you want, but you have to give a name. So we are creating a database with this name, and watch this. Do you see the path here? Do you see the path here? Yes. This path is saying drive C, users, Professor Fadams, documents. That means when I store this database, it is going to be saved in this last directory here. So it is going to be saved in which folder? Documents. Now, a database is not a file that should be stored in a common location. What I mean is that it shouldn't be stored just anywhere that people can find. Databases need to be protected. The last time I explained the importance of banks keeping their databases secure. Did I talk about that? So your database should be stored somewhere that you know that it will not be easily found. So I don't want to store in documents. I want to change it. To change, I'm going to click on this icon here. Do you see this icon? It says browse for a location. So I'm going to browse for a location. Okay, so I click here and the dialog box will show the file new database dialog box. So I'll look for a new place to store. I'm not storing on drive C this time. I'm storing on drive D, and I'm going to create a folder here. I'll click on new folder, and I will talk about I'll create a folder. Let me call it secured system. Press enter. The folder is created. I will double click on it, and this is where I'm going to store my database. So over here I will click OK, and when I do that, the path over here is going to change. So over here you are going to see the secured system, and my database is going to be stored there. I named it this way just to tell you that databases should be stored in a secure location. Now, did you see the database system I showed you? It is a database like what we are creating now, just that we are using a different DBMS. The DBMS we are using now is called Access, Microsoft Access. Are you following? Yes. So Access can also create an amazing database. So that is what we are using now. I have successfully given my database a name. I have indicated the path as to where the database should be stored. Now, after doing these two, I have a big red button waiting to congratulate me on the creation of my first database. So if you have not created a database before, this button is your ticket to creating your first database. When you click on it, you have now joined the database team. Wow. So click on it now. If you have done this, click on it, and In Hebrew, we'll say Mazal Tov. In English, we'll say congratulations. You have created your first database. All right. So this is a blank database we have created. And if you have never seen a database system before, this is it. This is a database system right here. All right. So, are you ready? Let me give you a quick tour of this system, then we will continue. So, it has a title bar here, like the other Office programs. It also has a quick access toolbar. It has a ribbon and several tabs, just like all the other Office programs. When you click on File, you get what we call the backstage view. So this is a backstage view. When you click on File, you get a backstage view. You click on this arrow to go back to your work, and this is how Access looks like. Okay, now watch this. In Access, we are going to be using certain things like what we see here. What do you see here? View. We'll be using View a lot. And we'll also be using Access Objects. We'll be using Access Objects and this panel here. So this panel, when I click here, I can hide it. And when I click here, I can show it. We'll be using this panel here most of the time. So you pay attention to this side, and it is going to show you the objects we have in Access. Access is the easiest database system to learn because as a beginner, there are only 4 things you need to learn how to do in Access. If you can learn those 4 things, you know everything about Access database. There are only 4 things to learn. Are you with me? I'm going to play a short clip that will tell you about these 4 things. And when I come back, I'm going to ask you to tell me. There are some 2 other things to learn, but that can only be learned by advanced users. But as a beginner or an intermediate user, all you need to know are these 4 things. So we are going to mention them, and your job is just to understand what they are, how to create them, and how to use them. Just 4 things. Are you ready? So let me launch this clip for you to hear this. Listen.
What is Microsoft Access? Microsoft Access is a database program. Let's take a look at what databases are in general and what Microsoft Access is specifically. A computer database is a program that lets you store, organize, and manipulate data. Databases are great for storing large amounts of information. You can use a database to organize that information by generating different reports and queries. And you can use a database to manipulate the data, actually make changes to it. In the days before computers, data would be stored on paper, usually in a ledger book or on index cards. For example, to keep track of your customers, you'd make a series of index cards with 1 customer per card. You'd have a separate drawer of cards for the products that you sold or the suppliers that you did business with. However, as efficient as this may have seemed at the time, it was very time-consuming to sort through the cards or to search through a large drawer of cards for some particular bit of information. When the first computers came along, the earliest databases were really nothing more than glorified text documents. They were great at storing information, and they certainly made searching and sorting easier. However, they lacked many features we take for granted today, such as the ability to recognize relationships between the different types of data. For example, you could have a list of customers with some basic details, but if you want to look up information on their purchases, you would have to look in a different file. The earliest databases had no way to relate this information together. This creates many problems, including having multiple copies of the same information in different places, such as the customer's name and address. Updating all that information can be a nightmare. Fortunately, Microsoft Access does recognize relationships. That's one of its strong points, but much more on that later. The next progression was for people to store their data in spreadsheets like Microsoft Excel. Excel is a great tool for storing small amounts of information and for analyzing data, but when it comes to large amounts of information, using Excel can be cumbersome. If you've got more than a few hundred rows of data, you really should be using a database like Microsoft Access. Plus, Excel has the same problem that early databases did. It's not relational. There's no way to link your customers to their orders or products to their suppliers, and so on. In addition, Excel can be difficult for novice users to work with. If you don't know how to use Excel, finding the information you want can be daunting. Whereas with Access, you can build a nice user-friendly interface for beginners to easily find their way around. Plus, it's much easier to secure an Access database than an Excel spreadsheet to keep people from messing with data they shouldn't be playing with. You can control exactly what people can do in your Microsoft Access database. So this brings us, finally, to the modern database. In my opinion, Microsoft Access is the best desktop database application available. An Access database can store large amounts of data, much more than an Excel spreadsheet or a simple text document. An Access database can recognize relationships between your data. For example, if you keep track of customers and their orders, you can store all of your customer details in one place, all of the order information in another place, and Access can relate those two together, so you don't need lots of redundant information copied throughout your database. You don't need to, for example, copy all of the customer's information to each order that he places. The database can track that for you automatically. One of the problems with spreadsheets and older database applications is that you have little or no control over what kinds of information get put into your database fields. With Access, you can specify exactly what types of data the user can type into each field. This will prevent, for example, a number where the customer's last name should be, or a 4-digit phone number, or a missing zip code if you want to force that. Access gives you strict controls over the structure of your data, and that's a great thing. Yes, it's possible to set up data validation in Microsoft Excel, but in Access it's much easier to do. And you can specify more elaborate rules. Access is a great tool for you to build a database for other people to work with. You can design a very user-friendly interface so they don't get lost. All of the data entry forms and reports that they need to work with can be presented for them in a nice, simple menu. Plus, since you, the developer, control the interface, you can easily secure your database and lock them out of sections they shouldn't see. Sure, there's a bit of a learning curve to initially get your database set up, but once it's built, you will definitely save time in the long run. Now, Access is a great tool by itself, and I've personally built Access databases that have run in very small companies with 2 to 5 employees, and fairly large companies with 100 employees. Access can certainly handle a lot of traffic. However, if you do eventually outgrow your Access database, you don't have to lose all of your work. You can upscale your database to a more powerful back-end database server like Microsoft's SQL Server. You simply send all of the tables and the data up to the server, and you can keep the interface, the forms and the reports and the queries that you've built, and work with those in Access. You get the best of both worlds. Now that we know what a database is and what the benefits of using a Microsoft Access database are, let's talk about the parts of an Access database. An Access database consists of data and the tools to work with that data. What are these tools? An Access database consists of tables, queries, forms, reports, and optionally macros and modules. Tables are used to store data, queries to organize data, forms to display data on the screen and to edit that data, reports for printing out data, and optionally, for more advanced users, macros are used to automate tasks, and modules give you the full Visual Basic programming language inside of your Access databases. Now, I have macros and modules grayed out because you can build a fantastic database in Microsoft Access without ever using a macro or a module. I cover macros in my advanced classes and module programming in my developer level classes. But all you really need are tables, queries, forms, and reports. All data in your Access database is stored in one or more tables. You can think of a table like a single Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. However, tables give you much more control over the types of data that can be input into them. For example, here you see part of a customer table. Tables are made up of a collection of fields. Each field holds a specific type of data. For example, here I have highlighted the last name field in red. This field should only store the customer's last name and nothing else. In fact, you can specify rules in the database to force fields to only contain certain types of information, like text, numbers, dates, currency values, and so on. Fields are also sometimes referred to as columns, just like in an Excel spreadsheet. All of the data concerning one item is stored in a record. Each record consists of the collection of all of the fields of data for that item. In this customer table, for example, each record represents one customer. Here, I've highlighted one customer, Alan Watson, in red. You can think of a record like a row in an Excel spreadsheet. You might not always be storing customers. In a product table, for example, each record would represent one product. In an order table, each record would represent one order. In a timesheet table, each record might represent one instance of an employee clocking in or out. So your tables can store many different types of data: people, places, events, and so on. Now, the data in your tables might not be stored in any particular order. You might have hundreds of thousands of records in your table, and the boss says to you, "I want to see a list of only customers from New York sorted by last name." That's what a query is used for. A query is normally used to display data in different ways. You can sort your data or apply criteria to only view specific types of data. Queries can be saved and used later, so you don't have to keep redesigning them. And someone with very little Access knowledge can run your query simply by double-clicking on it. Queries can also be used to modify data, add, delete, or even edit records. We'll learn more about these types of queries in our expert classes. For today, just keep in mind that queries let you view the data in your tables in different ways. Forms allow you to build a nice, user-friendly interface to work with data on the screen. Whether you're building a database just for yourself or for other people to work with, forms are a major time saver. You can display information however you want. You can include just the types of data that you want your users to work with. You can combine information from multiple tables, such as displaying a summary of a customer's orders on the customer form. You can secure your fields so users can only modify specific data and can only see other types of data. You may not want your end users seeing credit card numbers, for example. You can display calculations on your forms, such as the total number of days an employee has missed work. Your forms can also contain drop-down lists, so users can select data. Command buttons allow us to perform tasks such as opening other forms or finding records. In fact, you can turn a form into a main menu for other forms. The benefits of working with forms go on and on, but essentially, you'll build the interface with which users will work with your data out of forms. You never want users to have to work directly with your tables and queries, and you'll see why in upcoming classes. Reports are specifically designed to present data to people who are not using your database. You can print a report out. You can send it to someone as an email attachment, as a PDF file. You can use reports for customer information, invoices, product catalogs, mailing labels, charts, and lots more. Anything you want to present to someone else can be designed as a report. Finally, an Access database can contain macros and modules. These are more advanced topics that we'll cover in later classes. In a nutshell, macros are generally used to automate repetitive tasks or carry out simple actions. Modules contain Visual Basic programming code that can really take your database to a professional level. Now again, you can build a great database without ever touching a macro or module, and we'll cover these later in our more advanced classes. If you want to learn more about Microsoft Access database design, look for my Access Beginner 1 tutorial, which you can find for free right here on YouTube. Just click on the link shown to watch now. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and comment below. I post new videos all the time, so be sure to subscribe to my channel for updates. I've got tons of free Microsoft Access tips and tricks videos on my channel, plus lessons in other subjects like Excel, Word, Visual Basic, Windows, and lots more. Be sure to visit my website, accesslearningzone.com, for even more free videos, my Microsoft Access message forums, and lots more.
Alright, you heard what was said in the video, and I think this is vital. It's important to understand. So all we need to learn right now are 4 objects. The 4 objects are tables, queries, forms, reports. All you have to do is to understand what is a table. How does it look like? How can I create a table? That's all. You move to queries. What is a query? What at all is query? How do they look like? How can I create a query? You ask 3 questions. The 4th one, what is a form? I've been hearing forms. Is it like the forms we fill online? If I want to register for something, I fill a form. Oh, okay. It's similar to that. Wow. So I can create a form. Okay, how do I create a form? You learn how to create it. That's all. You come to report. What is a report? What is a report? Oh, okay. Reports. They are used when I want to print from my database. Oh, just that. Oh, that is it. How can I create one? This is how you create it. That's all. These 4 things, once you learn them, you know Access. And you can build powerful databases with your Access knowledge. Are you with me? Alright, so this is what I have. I don't know if I should go ahead and create the first table, which will be the main practical work in this lesson, or I should do that in the next lesson because it may take some time. So let's move that to the next lesson, because creating table is major.